From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez. On time.
Thank you, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 4th, 2 p.m. session of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. I'm going to ask Margot Rizan, our Kern County Counsel, to give us a report on actions taken in closed session. Ms. Rizan, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. This morning you met in closed session on items number 44, 45, and 46, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you. Okay, the next items will be our consent agenda, and all items listed with a CA or a C above the items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. And so the CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. If we had items for our other agendas, they would be denoted with a C. The consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. And so I'm going to go ahead and read those items. We do have some items off consent that some of you may want to comment on, and so those are not going to be considered right now. I'm just going to read the consent agenda. So that will start on page 2 with item 4, and on page 3 with items 5 and 6, as well as 9. So this does not include items 7 and 8, which have to do with our solid waste ordinance under Public Works. And on page 4, items 10 through 15 are all on consent. And on page 5, items 16 through 21 are all on consent. On page 6, 22 and 23 and 25 through 28 are on consent. And on page 7, we have items 29 through 37 that are all on consent. And so now I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment on any of those items that are on the consent agenda. So those do not include items 7, 8, or I believe 24. Do we have any persons who would like to comment on any of those? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board and ask if any board members would like to comment on an item, or I'll take an, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Okay, so that will take us back to page 2, item number 1. This is a certificate of recognition honoring Arvin High School Constitution team for being named 21st Congressional District champions of the We the People Citizen and Constitution competition. This item does not require a motion, but this is a presentation that Supervisor Couch will be making.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While Mr. Ruckman assembles everybody on his team behind me here, I'll pause for a moment, I guess. Let me tell you what they have done and why we drug them down here today out of school. On December 4th, Arvin's We the People team became the 21st Congressional District champions for We the People, the Citizen and the Constitution competition. And I just wanted to bring them down here and provide them with a little recognition. They're raising some money to go to Sacramento in February for the competition, but by that's on February 5th. What's remarkable about this, and you're going to hear from Mr. Ruckman in a moment, he's been deemed the assistant coach for today. The coach, who is Nick Hernandez, could not be here today. But Mr. Ruckman stands here and assumes the position of assistant coach rather easily, because was the coach for 16 years. Did you win all 16 years? You only won 15 years.
No, I coached 17, won 16.
So, sorry, I shorted him one there. He's coached 17 years. He won the same thing that they've won here 16 times. They've now won this 18 times in a row?
Yeah.
Wow. So I want to read the proclamation, or excuse me, the certificate of recognition. We have one signed by all members of the Board of Supervisors for the team, and then we're giving each of the, I'm going to name off each of the team members, and we're going to provide them something down here. Isabel from my office is going to help us do that. The certificate of recognition reads, is presented to Arvin High School, We the People Constitution Team, in honor of being named the 21st Congressional District champions of We the People Citizen in the Constitution competition, and for exemplary public service and civic contributions to the community and to Kern County. It's dated today, January 4th, signed by all 5 members of the Constitution. And Mr. Ruckman, I just want to present this to you on behalf of the team and give you a chance to say a couple of words, and we'll mention who all the kids are as Isabel passes something out for them.
Thank you, members of the board. I do want to thank you for this. It is definitely a communal event. These kids starting in August work tirelessly every day after school, weekends, holidays. They give up their time to study our government and our system to become experts and really be able to affect change as they go forward in their life. As he said, we've had tremendous success in the past. That's due in large part to hard work of the students, obviously, to their coaches, to the school and the community giving us a lot of support. I'd be remiss, as Mr. Couch mentioned, that I used to coach the team, but I'm also a product of the team. I was in this program in 1998, and I'm lucky enough that my coach, Mr. Larry Hallam, who some of you know, he was my coach back in the day, and so I stepped in to try to fill his shoes, and now my former student, Nick Hernandez, is taking over to do the same, and so it's just a communal event that we really have a great tradition of doing. We have tremendous support from our administration at the school and the community, so we do thank you very, very much for this, and we just want to applaud the kids for all of their hard work, because without them, obviously, it's a moot point.
Thank you very much. Let me name off each of the kids. Isabel, you ready to give each of the I keep calling them kids, and I apologize for that. The young ladies and gentlemen that are here today, members of the team. By the way, I ought to mention they need to raise about $15,000 for the trip. They have to stay in a hotel, they have to eat, they have to get there, they have to get back, and they're about halfway there. So if anyone who's listening here that would like to support them in any way, shape, or form, checks can be made out to Arvin High School.
Arvin High, We the People.
Okay. So, Isabel, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Shamar Al-Shaif. Did I say that right, Shamar? Yeah. Emmanuel Arias. Mercedes Espinoza. Sandra Espinoza. Marilyn Galvin. Did I say that right? Yes. Okay. Araceli Garza. Angela's not here today, right? Lizbeth Gomez. Hector Hernandez. Alex Martinez Serrato. Ryan Martinez. America Melgoza. Mary Moreno. Emily Perales. Sherilyn Ramirez. Miriam Ramos. Isaac Rodriguez Ramos. Alejo Rojas. And Tracy Bell Teodosio. Teodosio. Is that right, Tracy? Okay. Naomi Velez and Emily Watson. Congratulations, guys, and we just wanted to tell you how proud we are of you and wish you the best of luck on February 5th in your competition up in Sacramento. Thank you for coming here today.
Supervisor Couch, is that contribution tax deductible to the Arvin High School?
Yes.
I defer to my colleague, Supervisor Maggard, but I'm sure that it is. Yeah. Made to the district, it would be. Yes. Thank you. In fact, you might even be able to write it off twice if you made it to the district. Is that right, Mike?
Thank you so much.
All right, congratulations, everyone. It's fantastic. We'll give everyone a chance to clear the podium area before we go on to public presentations. All right, we'll move on now to item number 2, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. And so I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to speak on any item that is not currently on our agenda, and you have 2 minutes. Please come forward. Good afternoon.
My name is Alan Chenworth. Excuse me. I'm from North Edwards, California, part of the unincorporated county. Specifically related to that, I had 2 brief issues to bring up. One, being unincorporated, we are forgotten by the county road department. Our roads are so bad, some of the paved roads are now gravel. We need some attention out there getting the roads maintained. And it's not just North Edwards, but primarily as a resident of North Edwards, that's the one I'm concerned with. Related to that, I was just looking at the map for the district supervisors, and it's very kind of a confusing map. Everything's kind of twisted around Bakersfield. I would like to have a representative that is actually dedicated to the unincorporated parts of the county rather than have all of the supervisors try and be based in and collect the electoral base of Bakersfield. So as you go forward doing, I don't want to use the word gerrymandering, but gerrymandering the districts again, realigning the districts, can we try and get some districts that actually represent the unincorporated folks? So we are strongly underrepresented here in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Mr. Chenworth, I hope I got that correct. Would you leave your contact information with Mr. Alsop, if you could just raise your hand? I'd like to contact you about the roads issue. The redistricting we just completed, and so the maps are the maps for the next 10 years as far as the districts are concerned. But I would like to get my staff together with you so we can talk about some of the road issues that you brought up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And I do have some copies of what I need passed out. Hello, my name is Mary Little. I am a concerned citizen. Dear Board of Supervisors, everyone is very aware of the encroachment and overreach of the burdensome and loss of our fundamental rights and our freedoms as American citizens. More and more legislation issues, mandates, and laws that inhibit and take away our individual rights as citizens to think and act for ourselves are occurring at a fast pace. Vaccine passports have been implemented in other countries and have not been successful so far. New York City has been trying to implement the vaccine passport, and it has experienced backlash and problems making it ineffective, really, making vaccine passports either in digital or paper form is both illegal and discriminatory. There are several counties, some in California, that have taken a stand against the tyranny by implementing and adopting a resolution that the county will ban vaccine passports. Further, there are several states that have banned vaccine passports entirely. Alabama, Arizona, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, and North Dakota. It is doubtful that the state of California would ban vaccine passports, and we all know that. However, Kern County is a conservative area, and we know that too. Therefore, it's imperative that Kern County implement and be proactive in protecting the rights of our citizens. Leaders lead by example. The citizens of Kern County would welcome and appreciate leadership that is strong and promotes our democracy by making sure that our freedoms and our rights remain intact. I look forward to the Kern County Board of Supervisors taking a stance to protect the constituents and that you serve and protect. Your leadership in Kern County is valuable. May God honor our rights and our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public presentations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move then to board member announcements and reports. Do we have any this afternoon? Okay, seeing none, then that will take us to items 7 and 8. And so we're going to hear 7 and 8 concurrently, but we will be voting separately on these items. And so item 7 is a public hearing on a rate increase and an ordinance establishing the schedule of solid waste management program service charges and non-residential property for fiscal year 2022-23. And item 8, public hearing on a rate increase and an ordinance establishing the schedule of solid waste management program service charges for residential property for the fiscal year 2022-23 and providing for the collection of the same on the tax roll. And so I am going to ask now Ms. Brooks, good afternoon. If you can please proceed. I believe you have a presentation for us.
I do, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here to discuss the proposed increases to the land use fee and bin fees that have all been affected by inflation and multiple legislative acts. SB 1383 is perhaps the most sweeping legislation. Public Works has been working on solutions for compliance with SB 1383 since 2018. I have my Public Works team here to answer in-depth questions that the board may have, as 1383 legislation is lengthy and somewhat onerous. Chuck McGee, sitting here beside me, is in charge of our transfer stations and diversion operations. Lisa Schroeder is in charge of our franchise hauler agreements, illegal dumping cleanup efforts, and the handling of our waste budget. Tony Bonanno is in charge of our regulatory and compliance, as well as our gatehouses. And Brandon Fontes is in charge of our landfill operations. I'm going to run through the presentation that Mr. Pope shared with you on October 12th. We've made some changes. The solid waste management program rates for 2022 to 2023 Prop 218 protest hearings. This is the review of the costs and impacts of state legislation on waste operations. The SB 1383 legislation is a state climate change legislation finalized in November of 2022. The requirement of SB 1383 is to reduce the disposal or landfilling of organics by 50% by 2022 and 75% by 2025. The state estimates 40% of material currently disposed at landfills is organic. The examples are grass, brush, food, trees, paper, and cardboard. The county goal is to produce an implementation plan that meets the requirements of the legislation and coordinates with the incorporated cities that's cost-effective, balancing facility cost, hauling cost, and customer needs, and that also includes the land use fee, gate fees, and bin fees, and we need it to be simple and easy to use. The implementation is to separate the organics from the rest of the waste stream. We are proposing to expand the 3-container system. The garbage will go into the gray, black, or tan containers. The grass, brush, and food waste in the green container. Recyclables in the blue. And hope to offer a limited 1-container system. All waste in a single container will require additional processing. Step 1 is the collection. Residential and commercial, the 3-container system, also called source separated, in the universal collection areas. The gray, black, or tan will go to be disposed at the landfill. Green, composted at a green waste processing facility, and the blue, recycled at a material recovery facility. Step 2 is the transportation. Garbage will go to the landfill, and that is covered by the land use fee, gate fees, and bin fees. The grass, brush, and food waste will be accepted at the county facilities and the Mount Vernon Green Waste Facility, and that's covered by the land use fee, gate fees, and bin fees. And the county will process, but this is an expensive undertaking. The recyclables in the blue container are processed at private facilities, and that is covered by the garbage hauler fee. In the step 3 processing, garbage is transported to the county facility for disposal, but new legislation is limiting what can be placed in that container. Grass, brush, and food waste in the green container will continue to be accepted at all county facilities. The county hopes to have the Shafter compost facility up and running by 2023. We also utilize the Mount Vernon compost facility that is operated by the city of Bakersfield via an agreement with the county of Kern. And we can market clean compost. The recyclables in the blue container, the material collected by the franchise hauler processed at non-county owned material recovery facilities. You might hear the phrase MRF. The people that bring self-haul to the county facilities will process that there. We have collection and processing challenges in the multifamily and commercial services. Multiple bins have space constraints. They have high contamination in all the containers. What we need is more education and new technology. So how are we going to process organic waste? Of course, there's a lot of new technologies out there. So in that effort, in 2018, we distributed a request for proposal and statements of interest. In 2019, we received and reviewed the submitted proposals and selected the top 3 to move forward with field inspections of the facilities in 20 and 21. We evaluated those systems, and we've seen that systems costs vary from $20 million to $100 million. Just want to mention that edible food recovery is a part of the SB 1383 legislation. The Public Works Department is working in cooperation with public health and local jurisdictions to meet the mandates. So how do we fund our waste system? With franchise hauling fees, land use fees, gate fees, bin fees, grants, and recycling revenues. And who pays the land use fee? It's assessed on all inhabited residential parcels, and it's collected on the property tax bill. I'm going to give you a short history of the land use fee. It was implemented in 1989, started out at $27.50 per year, went up incrementally until July of 2012. It was $82.89 per year. Last year, you may remember that we added an illegal dumping fee of $22.11. So for July of 2022, we're proposing $180 a year. It seems like a lot, so I want to explain why. So how's the land use fee used? It's for the disposal and diversion of household waste and household hazardous waste, to construct, maintain, and operate all the county-owned waste facilities, all administrative costs associated with state reporting and permitting of the county-owned waste facilities. We also assist the incorporated cities with their state mandates. We use these terms disposal and diversion, may not be familiar to everyone. Disposal are items to be landfilled, and diversion is removal of items from the waste stream that are not to be landfilled. Examples are grass, brush, food, cardboard, appliances, tires, electronics, metals, mattresses, carpet, glass, plastic, paper, concrete, and wood. These are all items mandated to be removed from the waste stream. I'm not going to read these legislative impacts to the land use fee. Starting out in 1989, there's been a dozen or so. Ending here with 1383, which is probably the most impactful in 2020. So what do we need to do to remain compliant? Construct a compost facility at the Shafter Wasco landfill. That'll be about $20 million. We need to improve processing facilities at all the county sites. Construct self-haul facilities at the Bena landfill and the Shafter Wasco landfill. And construct a new transfer station at the Tehachapi landfill. The Tehachapi landfill is nearing capacity. We've also had an increased cost of $2.5 million a year at our Mount Vernon compost facility, bringing that total to $7.5 million a year. We'll need new equipment for processing all of this waste, $3 million a year. And we're estimating $30 million a year for new technology to process organic waste. And of course, we have our site maintenance at all of our facilities, scales, gatehouses, roads, fencing, et cetera. So how do we manage the financial impacts of this legislation? We're striving for a cost-effective solution, balance between the land use fee and the hauler cost. Currently, the land use fee is $8.75 per month, and we're proposing $15 a month. We're also proposing increases to gate fees and bin fees. The franchise hauling costs, we're currently negotiating with all of our franchise haulers. So what do we look at? How could we keep the number down? We considered service level reductions, just operating 3 regional facilities, our Shafter, Wasco landfill, Bena, and Mojave Rosamond. We could close all of our transfer stations, the Boron, Taft, Tehachapi, Ridgecrest landfills, close our household hazardous waste facility and search for other options, eliminate the illegal dumping surcharge that we just implemented. But this will have dramatic impacts to the hauling cost. We'll have a lot of impacts to our self-haulers, the residents and businesses, and we believe that there will be a lot more illegal dumping. So what are the consequences of non-compliance? Cal Recycle can issue fines. Jurisdictions can be fined for non-compliance with the regulations. They can issue compliance orders with specific requirements that must be implemented regardless of cost or practicality. Revocation of use, non-compliant facilities can be removed from the list of acceptable facilities under 1383. And the permits can be revoked if facilities fail to meet the state standards for operation. And failure to comply will also result in the cities of Kern County being non-compliant. Shortly after, I think it was in November, SB 619 came out that will allow jurisdictions to submit a notification of intent to comply to Cal Recycle for a potential waiver of administrative civil penalties related to 1383 violations. SB 619 does not change the SB 1383 compliance date of January 1st, 2022. If a jurisdiction fails to adhere to its proposed actions and timelines, Cal Recycle may revoke approval of the notification of intent to comply and retroactively impose penalties for violations that occurred in 2022. So here we are at the Prop 218. Prop 218 requires approval prior to imposition or increase of general taxes, assessment, and certain user fees. This is a protest hearing. If opposition to the proposed increases received are 50% plus 1, the rates are not approved. Rate increases are being proposed for the land use fee on residential properties and bin fees for non-residential properties. In accordance with Prop 218, the County of Kern mailed 237,622 notices to property owners regarding the fiscal year 22-23 solid waste management program service charges. You go.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. So we have 2 Proposition 218 agenda items that we've combined, as I mentioned, agenda items 7 and 8, since they are functionally equivalent for process, so they will be heard concurrently as one hearing. but still treated separately for voting purposes. And so this is the time and place for the public hearing to consider the rate increases and the proposed ordinances establishing the schedule of solid waste management program service charges for fiscal year 2022-2023 and providing for collection of the same on the tax roll for residential properties. So we have the gate fee and bin fee for commercial and the land use fees for residential. And so Ms. Brooks, can you please continue your presentation concerning these areas?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item number 7, solid waste management program service charge, non-residential gate fee and bin fee. Proposed increases. The proposed rate, gate fee $65 per ton, bin fee $3.30 per cubic yard of bin capacity. Gate fee is paid at the entrance to a solid waste facility. It is not subject to a Prop 218 protest hearing. The bin fee is derived from the gate fee. The bin fee is paid through the franchise garbage hauler subject to Prop 218 since commercial properties in the universal collection area are required to use a franchise garbage hauler. Agenda item number 8, solid waste management program service charge residential land use fee. Proposed increase. Proposed rate per parcel, 1 to 4 residential units, $180 per unit per year. 5 or more residential units, $144 per year per unit on the property tax roll for all residential properties.
Thank you. So before I open the hearing, is there any property owner who wishes to file a written protest regarding the increased rates or the placement of those charges on the tax roll for residential properties for either of these agenda items? If so, they must be filed with the clerk of the board now, as no protest will be considered that is submitted after the close of the hearing. So do we have anyone here that wants to file that? Okay. Seeing none. Madam Clerk, have there been any written protests filed with you prior to this time for these items?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the gate and bin fee, we received 3 protests against that fee. And I'd like to confirm with Public Works, I believe we had one late submission right before the meeting, so I believe the final count for the protest received for the land use fee is 240. Can I confirm that with Public Works?
Yes, clerk.
Thank you. So that is, the amount is 240.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I will now open the hearing and receive comments from any interested persons regarding either of these charges. So do we have anyone that would like to speak on these items here today? Please come forward. And you have 2 minutes, please.
Again, my name is Alan Chenworth, and I'm from North Edwards, California. I wanted to speak in opposition to this proposed bill, starting with, I get the feeling, I'm new to California, I've been here for about 4 years. People forget just how much they're paying in taxes. My house in California cost half, 50% of the value of the house that I had in Utah before I moved here, and I pay almost as much in taxes. Meaning I'm paying twice the tax rate already in California that I was in Utah. With that, this fee is outrageous. I hardly generate any waste, let alone green waste. And I'm being paid to subsidize primarily incorporated city mandates while I'm in an unincorporated area. Let's make the people generating the waste pay for the waste. Furthermore, it sounds like we want to separate the waste into 3 bins. Yay. I get to do a lot more work and double my bill for the privilege. This is not a good solution. There has to be another way to do it, and I don't think we really need an entire new $20 million landfill just to make a little bit of mulch. It's not that hard. You need a field and a tractor. Thank you.
Thank you. Who will be next, please?
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. My name is Julie Smaby, and I'm a citizen of Kern County for most of my life, actually. I'm strongly opposed to this increase. We did receive the 25% increase last year that was proposed, as the Public Works explained as well, and this is approximately 71% increase on top of that. And as the prior speaker also presented, I believe that's outrageous as well. I understand we have a state mandate, but I ask that you I'm strongly opposed to this, and I respectfully ask that you vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Madam Clerk, could you share these numbers, please? Well, hello again to some of you. Please, in about midway, yes. My name is Kevin Barnes. I'm a resident of Bakersfield. I served 25 years as the solid waste director for the city of Bakersfield. So most of the organic program at Mount Vernon and all that, I was able to build bit by bit with the help of a lot of county staff, a lot of cooperation. It's a great part of my career. I've been retired 2 years from that. And I feel a little guilty here popping in at the 11th hour, frankly. I apologize for not being in touch with people sooner, but I wanted to bring a couple things. Oh, this thing needs to shut up. Sorry, they overhear you. I'd like to point out a couple of things. In my retirement, I help disadvantaged folks, fix toilets and doorknobs and house repairs for free. It's just part of a ministry I work in. And I was really going to leave this alone. But my wife looked at me last week when I gave her the spouse version of this increase, and she said, you need to go and do what you can to try and keep that increase down. You know a lot of stuff. So I said, okay, I better show up. So I'd like to remind you that here at this podium, and with some of you serving as city council members, we've worked together. We've added food waste composting to the Kern routine. And actually, we're quite a leader in that. We started together. We started food waste composting 20 years ago, way before Sacramento pushed it. So we have a good track record there. But what lies ahead? Lots of fees, lots of programs. I don't envy the job that they've got. I'm doing other things now. There is a tough job ahead, and it's going to cost a lot of money. I can attest to that. But this today is only the put it down part of the bill. Your trash bill in Kern County has two parts. You pick it up, as Lynn Brooks mentioned, there's a haul fee and a landfill fee. So don't forget that the thing around the corner is a very expensive, potentially expensive haul fee. I come from that side of the business too, so I can tell you that that's ahead. So be cognizant of that as you raise these rates because of the impact on the citizenry. A real constant message we've heard from Sacramento and the staff has heard 1,000 times is California needs 100 new facilities to compost these materials. Yeah, they do. The state commissioned a special report taking inventory of all the facilities statewide. I was on the advisory committee for that report, so I'm quite involved in this. And the thing, unfortunately, lumped Kern County in with Southern California. So our numbers are kind of skewed there. So what I did yesterday, I drilled down a little bit on the state website, and those are numbers that you can see now, hot off the website yesterday. And all I'm trying to do is illustrate that Kern County is actually sort of the compost capital of the world in terms of, look at the tonnage that's permitted at our facilities, 3.8 million tons. We're using around 0.7 tons of that. We have 3 million tons of facility capacity left. Now, there's a little bit there. The shaded one represents biosolids only at one place.
Mr. Barnes, I'm sorry, but you're about almost a minute and a half over your allotted time.
Okay.
I know that you came wanting to make a presentation. If we had known a little bit earlier, I think we could have accommodated, but I do need to keep everybody to a 2-minute time limit if possible.
All right. I would encourage you to look for that capacity to be used instead of spending tens of millions of dollars on new capacity, to take some of the sting out of the rate increase for your constituents.
Thank you so much. It was good to see you too. Do we have any other speakers, please? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. May I take my mask off as I address you?
Sure.
Whew, it's hot. Thank you. Chairman Scrivener, members of the board, my name is Nancy Ewert, and I am a civil engineer. I retired in 2018 after working for the Kern County Waste Management Department and Kern County Public Works Department for 28 years. In my position for the county, I had the privilege of developing the long-range planning documents for waste management, including recycling, composting, and disposal. So I come before you today as a retired solid waste professional and a concerned resident and landowner for Kern County. I have reviewed the Public Works Department's proposed plan to increase land use fees approximately 72% in response to SB 1383. Taken together with the July 2021 increase of 27%, the department will have asked the board to increase land use fees 117% over the course of 1 year. While complying with state regulations is always challenging, I would encourage your board to pause, step back, and revisit the plans approved and the conditions in place, and thoroughly consider whether the department's proposed actions are really appropriate and needed for Kern County. As your board is aware, the county and the city embraced composting as the primary way to comply with AB 939 back in the 90s. When other jurisdictions jumped to implement blue cart recycling, the county and the city implemented curbside green waste and source separated waste for gardeners at landfills. That was 1995. The program was very successful. Not until 2012 was blue cart recycling implemented. In the public meeting related to the proposed rate increases, and again today in staff's presentation, staff indicated that the department began planning to address the compostable organics regulations in 2018. In fact, the department began many years earlier, as your board is aware by the documents that you approved. The updated Kern County Solid Waste Infrastructure Plan, August 6, 2013. The Kern County Organic Diversion Strategy, March 24, 2015. The Compostable Organics Program, September 2015. To my knowledge, these plans have not been updated or amended. The following state documents, the updated countywide siting element 2014 and the updated source reduction and recycling element 2015. The department has presented to the public and your board that their proposed actions are required and that if not implemented, the department and the county are in jeopardy of enforcement action by the state of California. As your board has heard from Mr. Barnes, facilities facilities cited and permitted in the county to address compostable organics is considerable. At present, only 18% of these facilities are utilized. 82% is underutilized of the existing composting facilities. Therefore, the state has no grounds to discipline the county for lack of facilities. In the past, the department has looked at all options to facilitate compliance. To that end, when the Recology Blossom Valley composting facility in Arvin updated their permit, it used to be called community recycling, the department, working with Recology and the planning department, requested some local jurisdiction conditions that were placed in the CUP and the mitigation monitoring plan. Condition 41 and 42 of the Recology CUP requires that facility to reserve approximately 10% capacity, or 375 tons per day, for Kern County. The compostable organics must come through a Kern County landfill or transfer station. Recology is allowed to charge the county $40 per ton, which is then partially offset by the host fee condition of $2.25 per ton on all out-of-county waste accepted by the facility.
Ms. Ewert, you're about almost 2.5 minutes over the
Okay.
time. Do you have that in writing for
I
us?
do, but I have about one more minute, if you don't mind.
Please proceed.
So the net cost would be approximately $22 per ton for the county. Recology is allowed to increase their rates. In general, though, the provision sets aside 130,000 tons of food waste capacity for Kern County locally. My understanding is the department is proposing Shafter-Wasco composting facility at 100,000 tons. To my knowledge, the board has not been notified or noticed that these options exist. They're in the record, and Ms. Lorelei Oviatt can attest to it. We worked through it with her. So, at a much higher price. My point in addressing you today is to help you understand that the County Public Works Department has many options and is not painted into a corner and threatened by state enforcement. In summary, staff's proposal is a significant rate increase. Over $80 million for equipment, facilities, staffing is hardly warranted at this time. The county has many options already in place. That is why I recommend that you pause, that you step back, that you have a third party not already associated with the county revisit the plans, programs, facilities, and monies already spent and report their findings directly to you. Staff indicated today that one of their goals is to develop an implementation plan. In my estimation and professional experience, implementation plans are developed first with costs put to them, and only after they are reviewed and approved by your board should a rate increase be requested.
Thank you.
If possible, I would also like the county consider developing a formal organics waste recycling program for businesses. That is required by 1826. It has not been done. This requires, the state recognizes that collection of business food waste is critically important. It has to be in conjunction with your haulers, and just like your board has implemented mandatory commercial recycling and mandatory recycling in the metro area, it's time to do that for organics for businesses. And 1826 allows it. The board and the department simply have to act. So I thank you for considering my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
I also have all those reports that I referred to.
Thank you.
If you'd like them.
You can provide those to the clerk, please.
You want me to give them to you
Sure.
electronically? Okay.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please? Okay, seeing none. Okay, so next is for us to vote on each agenda item individually. And so we have agenda item number 7, the Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge, bin fee, gate fee and bin fee, excuse me. And so, Ms. Brooks, will you please summarize the written protest results for the Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge, gate fee, and bin fee? And of course, I'm going to ask for you to respond to any of the comments made if you'd like to, but we'll start with that.
Protest hearing were 3,326. The 50% plus one threshold is 1,664. We received 3 protests. We did not receive the minimum number of written protests to mandate this item not pass. I now turn it back to the board for consideration and vote.
Thank you. I'll return to the board. Does anyone have any questions for staff or any questions about the comments we heard from Mr. Barnes, who 3 of us remember working with at the city of Bakersfield when we were on the city council, and also Ms. Ewert, who, as she mentioned, worked for the county as well. So do we have any comments? Supervisor Peters?
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Brooks, I would like if you could just to kind of respond to some of those comments that we just heard there. There seemed to be some suggestions on different ways we might approach this. So if you have any input, I would definitely appreciate it.
Of course, sir. Thank you. I'm going to let Chuck McGee answer that question for us.
Thank you. A number of the things that we've just heard are objects and programs that we have implemented years ago. And as you all know, we've worked with the Mount Vernon facility for a number of years and provide a majority of the material into that facility for processing. What we're asking for today is to cover the cost of these operations and to continue to use them. The Mount Vernon facility in the last quarter, the per ton cost of operations was $66.25. We're asking to increase our gate fee to $65, which is still slightly below that. But the cost of these facilities, these operations, is quite high. We have worked with Recology, the Blossom Valley facility, now for years, and using that fee that was in the CUP that they allow us to get. Unfortunately, the calculation was that they would be bringing in a tremendous amount more of material than they're getting. Our average amount that we can use there is around $8,000 to $10,000. So we send them enough material to utilize that CUP set aside, but that's a very small percentage of what we have available. We also utilize the Liberty Compost Facility out in Lost Hills, who accepts our material at no cost, which is a wonderful program for us. Unfortunately, there is a cost involved to process that material, get it loaded, and shipped to them. That is an expensive operation as well. After reviewing all of these operations to handle those organics, it became apparent through everybody's review, including Mr. Barnes, who was on the panel that we looked at putting this facility in at Shafter, that it would be very cost effective to put in a new compost facility that had the material delivered there so that it could be cleaned, put into the compost, and avoid many of the gate fee charges that we're looking at, as well as the transportation charges. As you're probably aware, transportation currently is a problem. Having this in our abilities to build and operate at a cost lower than what we're currently paying will help sustain the program throughout the next 10, 20 years that we've been looking at having it set up for. So to address these items, yes, we have looked at these. Yes, we do use these. That capacity that we're holding back at other facilities was well done and is being utilized. We do not utilize the facility at Synagro only because in their switch of management, they basically refused to contract with us at a set price. They had a number of issues. They had to use their own transportation. So we were not able to come to an agreement with them. We continue to talk to them for other options, but it's only a partial solution to take this amount of material, because when you say there's 40% of the waste going into a landfill is organic, today that means we need to get another 200,000 tons out of the waste stream to be compliant. That's today. In 3 more years, that number goes up to 300,000. We will be sending this material to ourselves, Mount Vernon, Recology, Liberty, and hopefully Synagro to be able to utilize this. However, the private industries do not accept it for free. Like I said, Mount Vernon's at $66 a ton. Recology today is at $42. So these are expenses that we will incur in the cleaning and shipping to them, plus those gate fees. The facility at Shafter is simply to try to minimize the total over cost of the program. And that's why it's included in the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. I appreciate that.
Supervisor Peters, through the chair, may I add something as well? Mrs. Ewert suggested that we had not been consulting independent consultants. We have been working diligently with HF&H, who's a well-known consultant in the waste industry, and have been taking their recommendations, and we have a number of reports with them that we can share with the board if you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you to staff. Do we have any other questions of the board? Just as far as the process here, we have a vote on item number 7, and then we're going to move on to item number 8. So this would be the time to ask any other questions about anything related to item number 7. Supervisor Couch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of unprecedented to have the former Mr. Barnes, was it a division or department, as I recall, at the city? It was a division?
Solid Waste Division.
Division of Public Works. And Ms. Ewert here today. Can I ask you, both of you, either of you, I was not expecting this today. I was not looking forward to this, what is it, 7 and 8, item 7 and 8 today at all. But I felt like we had no choice. Can I ask either of you to just come up and comment a little bit? You're telling me that we've got lots of choices or lots of options. What are you telling us exactly?
Yes, Supervisor Couch. There is a lot of facility capacity to meet this challenge. It happens to be geographically in Kern County.
Now our staff here just said
that they can't use it for various reasons. This is what I translate it as. And I know it's challenging. I
heard that, and I also heard it's unutilized, and we're utilizing. I can't recall exactly what you said.
The underutilized.
You lost me a little bit there, but that's probably not your fault.
Yeah, well, maybe I can clarify. Underutilized, I think we're all saying, in the sense of those businesses, and there's one public facility, they've all permitted themselves up to a certain level of capacity, anticipating future growth. And the amount of material going into them now from all their customers and sources, including all of us locally, is running around 18% of their capacity.
So let me dumb this down for a second. Is it going to cost us more to send it to the private facilities than it is to send it to our own facility?
So, President Couch, through the chair, yes. Because they send it to the private facilities, they don't take it as it comes. When the material comes out of a packer truck, it is not, unfortunately, a nice, clean product.
Can you do me a favor? I can barely understand what you're saying.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
We cannot send it to them for less than we can process it if we build the facility. The problem is the material that comes out of these packers is not clean green waste. It's not material that you can send to just any facility. Like I said, we utilized the Liberty facility in Lost Hills because if we clean the material to what it should be, they will accept it as a bulking agent at no cost. However, there must be, obviously we have a cost in the processing to clean it, to load it, and to ship it there. No matter which facility we use, we have those costs. We've got to get it out of those trucks at our facilities, clean it, load it, and ship it. Then the private facilities, as well as Mount Vernon, have a cost of doing business. In Mount Vernon, it's just what the cost is to do that business. At Recology, it's what they need to make a profit. At Synagro, it's the same thing. So we utilize all of these companies, except for Synagro, who we've not been able to achieve a contract with. But we use them all. We pay more to utilize those than it would cost us to do it ourselves.
Yeah, Mr. McGee is correct that it's going to take a large and costly effort to prepare the material regardless of where it goes, unless that facility does the cleaning, but they have to charge for that. So he's correct there. There needs to be some cost to cover that. I'm not here to say don't pass it. I'm just saying that that you might be able to take some of the sting out of it if you evaluate some other options. I wanted to clarify one thing. As city county staff, we've worked together a lot. One of the concepts we had to explore to avoid the huge capital cost of a shaft or compost place was backhaul the organic material from shaft or landfill to Mount Vernon, and then haul residuals, trash and such from Mount Vernon to the shaft or landfill instead of hauling it to Bena. Because an empty semi comes back from Bena from that job, an empty semi comes back and forth from Shafter. Why not combine and get a free truck ride? It's called backhaul. Creative solutions like that need to be fully explored, in my opinion, to try and deal with this expensive mandate we've got, but without going in danger of building a not to be rude, but a white elephant. And what I mean by that is something that very expensive, gets built and doesn't get used. I can describe a couple of classic examples in California. The maxim, build it and they will come, doesn't always apply in waste. County down south in the 90s spent $50 million back in the 90s to build a recycle center. It cost so much to use it, all the waste went to another county. The place sat vacant for 15 years or so. It was a terrible, terrible fiasco. North of us, there's a county where a county down south has spent somewhere between 50 and 100 million on a compost place, starting about 15 years ago. They only use a tiny bit of that because the material they're sending up from Southern Cal that was supposed to go there to the place they own and built gets intercepted by these other businesses in Kern County. So I just want to be careful here. Well, I hope everybody can be careful that we don't raise our constituent fees to pay for something that we might not really, really have to do, like these larger capital costs. Yes, I agree, program costs are there. You know, I would endorse that. But I'm just cautioning on the capital to build additional facilities might not be that necessary. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. What you just said a minute ago about the utilizing a backhaul, I don't know if that's something that's would be part of some sort of implementation plan. What does an implementation plan look? Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I don't need you to stand there.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
By the way, that backhaul could occur to those other facilities. I'm not trying to promote Mount Vernon here.
I understood. It was an interesting.
They all have residuals, and they can do a little back and forth. So.
Supervisor Couch,
yes.
Through the chair. We do that. We have had a backhaul situation with the Recology Blossom Valley facility now for over 2 years, and that's how we do that. We've tried working with some of the other companies, but it's more difficult than you would just anticipate because the truck coming out of, say, the Bakersfield facility, when it gets there and unloads, for it to backhaul takes time. It has to come into the facility. It has to, after it empties, it has to come to another site, get loaded, go back and get reweighed for shipment back out. Truck drivers don't like time being wasted anywhere. If they could get a backhaul, they will take it, but they generally won't do it for free. Sometimes we try to get a reduced cost. We have utilized it as much as possible, but it's not always available for the total tonnage that needs to be shipped. So you ship what you can in a backhaul situation, and you just pay to have it removed otherwise.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole very far, but that's because we're subjecting ourselves to the issues that a private truck driver has.
Correct.
If we owned that truck and driver was our employee and we said, your job is to drive back and forth between these two facilities, that problem goes away.
That is one of the things we're working to do, put on more trucks that can haul in the 100 cubic yard walking floor systems. We utilize them heavily now to be able to do that. It has cut the hauling costs drastically. Remember, we are talking about a $20 a ton haul fee if we pay a contractor to do it, and that's usually on a short haul. If we go further than that, it gets even bigger. These trucks carry 25 tons apiece, so you can easily be at $600, $700 a load. When you start adding that haul cost to the processing cost, it exceeds the amount of money we receive through the land use fee or the gate fee now for accepting that material, and that is part of what is causing this need for an increase.
So let's assume that we adopt this and as Ms. Brooks said, some other technology comes along. She talked about technology a minute ago. Or some other idea comes along that we're able to do this before we get to the capital expenditure. But we've adopted a fee of X. We had to do a 218 process just to get to this point today, to have this hearing. What if we want to reduce that fee? Because we know that we don't need that much money. Is that as easy as we can just come here and reduce it? Or do we have to go through that whole process again, just to reduce a fee?
Supervisor Couch, the chair, Phil Hall, Deputy County Counsel from our office is here, and he can respond to your questions on these matters.
Through the chair, you can lower it right off the bat. You don't have to do anything, no 218, no nothing. If you find out 2 months from now that you need to lower this fee, you can. And in fact, you have to look at this fee as it goes forward because it's a restricted fund and audit it and make sure that you're not over collecting. So not only can you lower it, you actually have to make sure you're not overcharging as you move forward.
Does that mean that annually you would come bring something before us and we would?
It's every 5 years that they audit fees like this that are restricted.
Okay.
But you can do it sooner if you want, obviously. That's just by statute.
How long would we have to have this in place before we would know if we're on track or if we're running a surplus?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, we are doing a constant cash flow analysis. Lisa Schreeder works very diligently as we go through each budget year. We maintain the cash flow, and we look at it every single year and could adjust the rates accordingly.
So annually would be an easy thing for us, for your department to do?
Extremely easy.
Okay. Ms. Ewert, you are standing there. I'm going to recognize you if you'd like to make a comment. Okay.
Thank you.
If that's okay with the chair.
You asked the question.
Absolutely, this is your time.
Okay.
You asked the question, what options does the county have? This comes straight from a Cal Recycle presentation. Under basically 1826 and 1383, you can do organics through recycling, composting, in-vessel digestion, biomass conversion, soil amendments, land applications, animal feed, food recovery, and certain activities through a public POTW, a wastewater treatment plant. Those are all options. The two things that don't count are disposal in a landfill or use as landfill cover. Those are the two that do not count. So of these, and part of this implementation, it appears that staff is focusing primarily only on the aerated static pile or the composting. There are a lot of options, and not all waste has to be driven out of the landfill. 70% of it eventually, of the organic waste. But one of the things you can focus on is, what do you collect? Start with collection. What do you collect? What can go into these different programs? And how do you meet those standards? So I agree with Mr. Barnes, is that compliance with 1383 is clearly going to take a rate increase. But a 70%, 72% rate increase at this point without an implementation plan is obscene. It's obscene.
I appreciate that comment. So let me ask staff about that. How long will it take you to? Are you coming back to us with the implementation plan, or is that an internal exercise?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, we are not just looking at composting. You'll see in one of my previous slides the technologies that we looked at since 2018, since Ms. Ewert left. We have looked at a number of different technologies ranging anywhere from 20 million. That's the cheaper option, but it's also extremely labor intensive, and it doesn't give you a product. It gives you a product that you have to then further process up to $100 million. So this is not our only plan. She speaks that we don't have an implementation plan, and also that her plan that she put together in 2015, this legislation was signed into law in 2020. So there are a lot of other things that have happened since she left the county that we have taken into account. So as I said, and I can run back through the slides of what we intended to do with this money. If you'd like me to run back through that, I can do that.
What I want to know is how long is it going to take to develop your implementation plan, and do you have to bring that back to us, or is that something you do internally?
Well, as we bid a Shafter compost facility, it would come to the board for approval. As we go forward to purchase a technology to handle organic waste, that also would come to the board. Any equipment that we would buy would come to the board. All of these things are in our cash flow, in our plan to be compliant with 1383.
I think, and this is where we're maybe talking past each other, I think what she means, and she can correct me, is an overall program implementation plan for the entire action that we're taking today. You're talking about an implementation plan on a more individualized approach. So I'm interested in the implementation plan for what we're taking today. And Ms. Oviatt, your name was invoked. So would you like to, I don't recall what was said that you said or what you did or whatever, but you want to defend your honor?
Lorelei Oviatt, Director of Planning and Natural Resources. So I just wanted to add another piece to your discussion. I've been involved at the invitation of Mr. Pope on a number of phone calls with other jurisdictions who are bigger than us, who are going to generate a lot of waste. And they are not going to be building composting plants in Beverly Hills. And they're not going to be building them in Southern California, in Santa Monica. Shocking. I just want to remind your board that those other options were looked at in the Shafter composting EIR that was done. So we did a full environmental impact report. I just want to point out that it wasn't litigated, so it's a legal EIR. That's a major investment that you've made in this project. And many of these other jurisdictions would be looking at the opportunity to pay you to bring that organic waste into that composting facilities. This is an investment. And my understanding, of course, which I may be wrong, was that these fees would then go down at some point if the majority of that capacity is not used by Kern County and we're generating money from it, then there could be some adjustment made to this investment. But they are not going to be building composting facilities in other places. Biomass, all of these other ideas, land application, have significant air impacts. We are not going to be able to attain and continue to attain our air mitigation that we actually have to have in order to operate with these other types of things. They all sound good, but they just don't pencil out when it comes to air mitigation. And aerated static piles, 80% of the VOCs are reduced. When you put organics out, that's not what happens. Biomass has the same problems. So we will continue to look at those, I have no doubt, but I did want to share with you that I've been involved in many high level. Supervisor Couch knows some of the people that we've talked to in regards to these types of opportunities in the future. It's unfortunate that we have to take this decision now, but I want to remind you that that environmental impact report doesn't last forever. And you cannot delay building this facility forever while they change the rules in Sacramento. So I just wanted to add kind of a bigger context. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Supervisor. Any other questions or comments from staff? Supervisor Perez.
Just that was a helpful invocation. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, there's one
Sure, Mr. Barnes.
little factor here, and that is one of the state bills just a few years ago changed the game of how a city or county's recycling score is affected by any residual trash that's taken out of a recycling plant. Those boo-boos that people make in their blue cart that go to the landfill after sorting? and the stuff that gets screened out of green waste compost goes to landfill. It used to get charged in the state system to the town where it came from. So if food waste came from grocery stores throughout California to the composter in Arvin, that trash left over got charged to those other cities in terms of recycling score. The law changed, and that is now charged to the county or the jurisdiction where the facility's address is. The meaning of this is, as these other very, very large tonnages we saw get utilized by, say, Southern California, Northern California, whoever brings their stuff to Kern County from outside, all the residuals will be counting against the hard-earned score that staff is working to achieve on that, overall recycling level. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's another reason to wonder if we can't utilize the capacity that's here in Kern County now to take care of this challenge and not build new capacity, because that just leaves another 100,000 tons open door invitation to another jurisdiction to dump their residuals on us, Kern County. Complicated, I know. We're talking a lot of trash. I didn't plan to get in the weeds like this today, but we can happily meet and discuss further if you like. I'm available if anyone chooses. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. That does raise a question about timing for me, in my mind. First of all, Supervisor Couch, you asked some really good questions, and I know we all appreciate it. The thing I'm struggling to determine is, has Mr. Barnes or Ms. Ewert brought up anything that our staff hasn't already considered when they brought this to us? And I'm struggling to put my finger on anything that you haven't thought through. I mean, what this presents us all with is another unfunded mandate from the state of California that is going to be borne by the backs of our ratepayers, each and every residential property owner and beyond. And so I don't think anyone here is eager to move forward on this. If there was a reason to pause, I'd sure like to hear it. But if we did pause even for a short period of time to flesh this conversation out more, what implications do we have as far as timing? When would we have to proceed? This is a 218 process. It's a little different than a regular vote. We've had protests come in, et cetera. And so I'm looking to both legal and our public works staff to try to help us navigate what we may be able to do here, rather than just moving forward.
Supervisor Scrivener, the implementation plan is to be turned in with the SB 16619, the notice of intent to comply. So all of the things that we've talked about is how we intend to comply with 1383. And like I say, I'm not exactly sure why Ms. Ewert feels that we don't have an implementation plan. We do have an implementation plan that has been reviewed by our Public Works Director, outside consultants. We have done the work by going out with an RFP to look at different technologies and that sort of thing. And so all of that will be in what we submit in our notice of intent to comply, which will buy us some time as long as we move forward. We cannot submit the notice of intent to comply unless we have the funding to do that, and that's why we're here today. That's due in March, so that's why we're here. These fees won't go into effect until July, but there is a plan.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Ewert and Mr. Barnes both sat in chairs like that, and Ms. Ewert actually in those chairs before. And it seems to me that it is pretty much unprecedented for folks with your background to come at this point in the process and protest. So can Ms. Ewert, could you first tell us, why are you here today? And do you represent anyone who has an interest in this process? Why is it that you are participating in this process now and not having been engaged in it earlier?
I do not represent anyone other than myself. I've been watching this for a number of months and looking at the documentation and hoping that they would bring something to your board to approve. I've been looking at the Solid Waste Management Advisory Committee, which was a typical venue for these issues to be heard and have city representation and haulers and everybody else, solid waste professionals of the industry, look at it and review it. My understanding is I think the last SWMAC meeting was about 7 minutes. And with COVID and everything else, there have been these issues, granted. I do not represent anyone else. I think my husband finally got sick and tired of me on my soapbox in the kitchen reading the stuff in the paper, and he said, "You need to go and speak about this."
Have you spoken to any of our staff before about this or presented your concerns to the county at any point before today?
I have not.
Okay.
And there's reasons for that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barnes, how about you?
Supervisor Maggard, no, I don't have anyone to represent other than the general interest of ratepayers that you and I both served for many, many years together. That's my MO, is to keep the rates down. And I have certain knowledge here that from my viewpoint, not having been directly involved with your staff lately, no, I see things could work out a little differently.
Have you attended SWMAC meetings? Have you participated at any level before today to share your concerns or observations before you came down at the...
No, sir, I was not notified of those.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Hey, any other questions from members of the board? We've just lost one of our members just now, and so now there's 4 of us. But we do have the question of the vote on agenda item number 7, and so I'll call for Supervisor Peters. Did you punch in? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one more quick question. I think I might have missed this, and this is for our county council, Mr. Hall. Just say we were to delay this temporarily to our next meeting, just to give us some time to flesh this out. Would that impact the 218 process or interfere with it, or could we take that vote up at that time?
So you have a couple options. One is you could pass it today, lower it at the next meeting or any meeting between now and July 1st when it actually goes into effect for people to pay. The other is you've closed the hearing today. The 218 process is over at that point, but you could have another hearing at a future board meeting before you impose the fee. It would be cleaner to adopt it and lower it, but you do have the option of the hearing for the 218 is over today. It's sort of a weird part of Brown Act where if you come back, people get to comment, but they're not going to be able to protest again. That's why I say it's cleaner to adopt and lower it if you wish, but you have both options.
Understood. Thank you, sir. That's it for me, Chairman.
Supervisor Couch?
Can you explain that again? Why is it cleaner?
So there's a part of the Brown Act that says every time you have an agenda item, the public gets to comment.
Right.
Now, when you're doing 218, the public gets to comment and submit protests at the end of their comment period. But you're closing the hearing.
Right, so they would get to comment.
They get to comment, they're not going to get to file a protest.
It's a verbal protest.
Yeah.
Under that scenario, okay.
Exactly. It's just kind of bizarre to have comment with no protest.
And so I'm assuming that applies also to item 8 as well, as far as process is concerned?
Yes, it would.
Okay, because we have not concluded that process on item 8 or even started it, but we have on 7 at this point, because I did close that hearing. So I'll look to the board for a motion, one way or the other.
I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation, and this is for item 7, correct? I believe we're voting on these separately.
Yes,
okay,
we are.
Thank you. But in the meantime, though, I would like to speak with our Public Works Department just so I can kind of get a better understanding and flesh some of these issues out.
I think we should have a full board here for the vote, myself.
Okay, I'm not hearing a second on this item to the motion, and so without a second, the motion dies, and at that point, I would accept some kind of an alternative motion. Perhaps that's for us to come back in a couple of weeks or something to reconsider it, despite council's suggestion that it would be cleaner for us to proceed. He didn't tell us that we couldn't do it that way.
If you're wanting, Chairman, if you're wanting to head down the second path of not adopting the rate today, the motion needs to be to table it to a future meeting, but close the hearing and collect all protests and count all protests for the 218 now.
And the next, I'm looking the next available, would that be the 25th, Madam Clerk, for us?
Yes, January 25th.
Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you. I think it's appropriate in light of there was a lack for a second there that we do close the public hearing and then conduct one more discussion where we can hear some more input from staff and answer some of these questions and allegations that have been made. So I would move that we close the public hearing and schedule it for, was that the 25th, Madam Clerk?
Yes, January 25th at 2 p.m.
For January 25th at 2 p.m.
Council, that's consistent with what you proposed, I believe?
Yes. Hearing is closed on the 218 process. Votes are counted. You'll have a future agenda item to have further discussion on setting the rate in accordance with the 218 protest procedure done today.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a second to that?
A second.
Okay, you have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to agenda item number 8, Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge Land Use Fee. I have some idea about what might happen on this one. So, Ms. Brooks, will you please summarize the written protest results for the Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge, the land use fee?
134,296. The 50% plus one threshold is 117,149. We received 240 protests. Mr. Chairman, we have not received the minimum number of written protests to mandate this item not pass. I now turn it over to the board for consideration and vote.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. So do we have a motion on this item? Supervisor Britt? Well, I think I believe I asked for public comment already on both these because we did it concurrently, but we're voting separately. So we completed that portion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for my confusion about that. I would move the same as we did before, that we would close the public hearing and schedule the item for action on January 25th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Excuse me, the motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Okay, so I'll just ask council, so that concludes our process here for items 7 and 8. So I'm going to move on to item number 24, which is the next item on the agenda. So item number 24 is under the County Administrative Office, Human Resources Division, and I think we have Devin Brown that's going to start us off on this discussion. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The item before you is a request to employ a retired county employee, Ali Anan, waiving the 180-day requirement or period to sit out to fill a critically needed position. Under state law, whenever a retiree comes back within a 6-month period after their retirement, the item has to be held off consent for your consideration and determination that the position or the rehire is critically needed. In this case, our Public Works Department is requesting to rehire Mr. Anan as the Assistant Director of Public Works, specifically to act as the department and the county's certified building official. Without Mr. Anan being rehired, the department is without somebody who has that that particular credential. So it will be for a period of time to end with this fiscal year, June 30th, 2022, or a maximum of 960 hours. Kern County Employee Retirement Association has reviewed and approved this request as well. And so we're recommending your board approve the request to rehire Mr. Anand, waiving the 180-day period to fill this critically needed position within the Public Works Department at a range of 75.3, step 9 of the new salary schedule, and for the period expiring June 30th, 2022, or if 960 hours are met in the next 6 months. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do we have any questions for Mr. Brown before I go to the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on item 24. Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board for action.
Motion to approve. Approval.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda this afternoon. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to January 25th.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Ever. And that's still true today, 50 years later.